Hello, my name is Georgianne Ford with the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation, and I'm here today with one of our attorney mediators returning to us. Michael Hughes is back, and Michael's going to talk to us today about how important it is to, from the very beginning of that divorce mediation process, to get the communication boundaries kind of set up and established. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Georgianne. Yes, that's the topic that we want to cover today.
Okay. So tell us more about how that plays into the process.
Well, like Georgianne said, even from the very beginning, coming in for a consult, it's very important for both parties to have good communication skills. And one of the best things for good communication, especially going through a divorce mediation, is being able to openly listen to the other person. And again, in mediation, especially, you have to be able to have that open communication because that's what mediation is. You're talking and negotiating and working through every step of the way, whether it's custody, support, distribution of your marital estate, that we need to be able to freely and openly have candid discussions going through the mediation process. And if one party is having difficulty in doing this and is antagonizing or picking on is the wrong word, but is bringing emotion to a very difficult situation, it makes it much more difficult to get through the mediation process. I know I can specifically think of one case where it was a husband who was surprised by the divorce, that didn't realize that they were going that the wife wanted to go that way. And when he came in to the initial consult and even through the mediation itself, he had times where there would be, again, that anger, that emotion that would come up. And myself as the mediator, I have to watch that and make sure that parties are on the same playing field and trying to manage their anger and their emotion. And I will say too, in that instance that I'm talking about, the wife actually handled herself really well, and that's key, and that's important to understand that you are going through a very difficult process here, and it's not just you going through it. It's your partner as well. It's your spouse as well who's going through it, and you may be on different levels on where you are with the divorce, your acceptance of the divorce, and those kind of things. So, again, in that instance, I did have a wife who was very understanding that it was difficult for her husband to accept this, to go through this. And that helped the husband come along in the process and work through those emotions. And I don't want to call it anger always, but it's really the emotions that you have in going through, again, a very difficult process in going through a divorce.
Right. Just were you saying that if the one person is able to manage things, their emotions better, they're able to help the other person if they're the triggered people, it sounds like.
They absolutely are. And again, it's one of those things, it's a knowledge base that you have to be self-aware of where you are. And again, where you stand in that process, but it's not only where you stand, but it's where your spouse stands. It is one of those things, just being aware. And again, openly listening to what the other person is saying. Someone may, strike out verbally and be angry for an instant. You don't want to internalize that. You want to understand what they're saying. You want to, in a way, accept what they're saying. But in mediation, you really have to work through those things because you want to get through the process and the steps of what you're doing to get to a successful mediation, to get to a successful agreement. And sometimes you're all going to have those stumbling blocks. But again, good communication, good listening is key to mediation. It really is. And I will tell you too, I've sat with people in consults where I can tell very quickly that they're not good communicators, they're not good listeners. And sometimes you have to tell people you may not be right for mediation. Or you need to take a step back and really think, if you want to go through a mediation process, you have to take a step back and say, look, you need to look at what you want to do. If you want to go through mediation, you are going to have to listen. You are going to have to openly communicate with each other. If you can't do that, they may be candidates who have to go through the litigation process. But really, when people take a step back and really look at what they're doing and look at where they want to end up, mediation makes a lot of sense for a lot of people who are going through a divorce, because you are going to be, especially when kids are involved, you're going to be involved in each other's lives for a long time. So you want to still have those open lines of communication. You still want to be able to listen to the other person, again, for your sake and for your kids' sake, if kids are involved as well. So again, sometimes I have to tell people, you may not be right candidates for mediation. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And that's part of my job as well as the mediator, to be able to balance and look at those kind of things in a consult and even through the mediation process itself.
Well, you make it so clear, like I could tell from the beginning, we have to have those clear communication, or this is not going to work. Also,
that's absolutely true.
And what I hear you saying too is the whole outcome is impacted by how we do control those emotions to get through that mediation process.
Oh, it absolutely is. And again, it's not just at the beginning. It is absolutely throughout the whole process that you need to have the open communication and the active listening to each other to make sure that both of you are understanding and working towards a fair agreement for each other. And again, that's part of my job as well, is to make sure that this stays on course and that we are working towards that fair agreement for both people.
I'm going to guess, Michael, when they get through that process, their relationship is probably in the healthiest place it's going to be able to be, especially if you're going to be managing with children and things. That's a better place to end up.
And that's one thing where I think mediation is so much better than litigation, because in mediation, you are coming to a meeting of the minds. You are working together constantly. And yes, I believe they are in a better place once they're signing that agreement, because there was a give and take the whole way through. And there was, again, in mediation, listening to each other. In litigation, you're really not listening to the other person. You are, for lack of a better word, you're attacking the other person if you're going into court. You really are. In mediation, you're really not doing that.
Any of you want to speak with Michael Hughes, find out more about the Alpha Resource Center for Divorce Mediation, 1-800-310-908.